I used to think that lake fishing was the poor cousin of river fishing. I had no idea of the real challenges or rewards of still waters until competition fishing started to open my eyes, and I found a whole world of techniques and subtleties that could take a lifetime to master. Today, we got the keys to this wonderful hidden lake that's been closed to the public for more than 20 years, and it might even reopen soon. Here are some of the secrets that unlocked it for us on this day. G'day guys, it's Peachy. I'm with my mate Dave today, and we're fishing down at Dixieland, which is a private lake fishery in the Snowy Mountains. Now, I first fished here nearly 30 years ago when this place was open, you could pay to come in and fish. And the new owners are considering doing that again. And I sure hope that they do, because this place is a lot of fun to fish, let me tell you. Dixieland is situated at the northern end of the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales, near the town of Adaminaby. This region has been a mecca for Aussie trout fishing for over 100 years, and the tourism generated by trout fishing helps to keep these towns alive over the summer months, when the snow season trade has literally dried up. So while some might prefer to fish in the public rivers and lakes, I think there are benefits to private fisheries like Dixieland, both for anglers and for the local community. We recently held sessions on these lakes in the National Fly Fishing Championships, and we were able to get 5 boats on the biggest lake, known as Lake Cattegat, and it held up really well to 5 sessions of fishing. So there is a good stock of fish in here. That doesn't mean that it's an easy fishery though. These trout don't behave like typical stockies that have just been thrown into the lake. They've been in there for months to years and have acclimated to the natural food cycles in the lake. So it's very much like fishing for normal wild fish, just ones that are a little more plentiful and perhaps larger on average. Yep, there's one. The wind was a real challenge for us today, making casting and contact pretty difficult. Gee, they've got some go. Even these smaller models. They've really got some fight. Oh, that's good fun. But wind is often a good thing in lake fishing. Wind can concentrate food and action in areas of the lake. When we first arrived, I fished into the wind in a deeper bay. There must have been a lot of food, plus warmer oxygenated surface water blowing into this corner, and it produced a couple of great fish. Casting into a howling wind like this is not easy. But typically on wind-blown shores, the fish are closer in, looking for food that has been dislodged by the waves, or surface food that has blown across the lake and accumulated against the bank. If you just cast at a slight angle away from the direction of the wind, it's usually possible to get a cast out. And often, that extra effort will be rewarded with a nice fish. Dealing with wind is one of the reasons that a slightly heavier fly line class is desirable for lake fishing. It gives you more casting power to counter the wind and to turn over teams of flies, often some of them weighted. I'm fishing a 10-foot 6-weight rod today, and my mate Dave is fishing a 10-foot 7-weight. These kind of lake rods are good, but really you can fish with whatever fly gear you have in here. I like the long 10-foot rods because we're casting multi-fly rigs at the moment. What we're doing is we're fishing a weighted fly on the point with a bead on it, and then on a dropper we're fishing some smaller wet flies that imitate little mayflies and insects. Today we're just using that point fly to sink the flies down to get them to depth so that we can slowly retrieve our flies back above the weed beds and bring them back in and fish them up the contour of the bank as it comes back up towards us. So I've got a sink tip line on here, which is helping with that. Dave's fishing a pure floater, and we're both catching fish, so either one of those will work. When trout are not feeding on the surface, most times they'll be patrolling at depth, just above the level of the weed beds, because that's usually where most of their food comes from. So when we're fishing from a boat, a full sinking line is often a good choice because it allows us to keep the flies at depth through the whole retrieve. But from the bank, those full sinking lines become a problem because they can drag our flies through the weeds as we retrieve them closer to the shore. So the better strategy from the bank is usually to fish a floating or a sink tip line and add weight to the flies so that we can get our flies deep out away from the bank, but still bring them up over the weed beds closer into shore. So what we're doing here, the way that we're fishing is we're casting out past the drop off into the deeper water, and then we're counting our flies down. Let them sink I'm letting mine sink for between 7 and 10 seconds, and then I'm starting a slow retrieve back. Today I'm finding that most of the fish like the slower retrieve. They're mainly eating the smaller fly on top. But it's always worthwhile changing up your retrieves in lakes like this. Try some fast retrieves, try some slow ones, and try different depths as well. So don't always count down to the same depth unless you've found a depth that's working. So sometimes I might count down 5 and then start retrieving. Other times I might count down 15 or 20 and then start retrieving. What I'm trying to do is get my flies down in the column and close to the bottom, so I fish them just above the weed beds where most of the fish are likely to be cruising. So I'm using that beaded fly on the point to get my flies down to depth. But most of the fish today, in fact all of my fish, have come on the top fly, the little cruncher pattern, which is sort of a mayfly nymph imitation, which indicates that the fish are probably mainly feeding on aquatic insects in here at the moment. But some days the bigger flies, stripped faster, can be really effective. Just depends on what the fish want. It's really important to experiment with fishing different depths, different styles of retrieves, and different flies until you find something that's working for you. So Dave's over here fishing on the point at the moment. How have you been going today, mate?
Not too bad, Steve. I managed a couple of fish today.
Yep.
But then, average sort of size. Nothing to write home about, but quite happy to get a couple in the net.
Yeah, that's right. We know there's a few of the really big models in here as well,
Yeah.
don't we? Which always keeps it interesting.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. So what's been your best fly and technique today, mate?
Find that a damsel type imitation. It's basically a Shrek style fly. Green head, green olive body. That's got both the fish. I've also fished a couple of other flies with it, but I have haven't had any touches on them at all.
Yeah.
And pretty slow retrieve seemed to work today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and some reason and moving around a lot as well, not stopping in one place. I think is covering a lot of area is key.
Yeah, 100%. We've noticed that a couple of times today, haven't we? Where we've caught a couple of fish in a spot and then it seems to shut down.
Yes.
And then we move to another spot and we start catching fish again.
It's true. Yeah. It's gone a bit quiet now in the last half hour or so, but that's certainly the case. Fishing off the points seems to be a good spot today.
Yeah, I think now that we've started to have a little bit of sun poke through, the fish have probably pushed a little bit deeper. So getting out on these points, getting a little bit into deeper water and letting the flies sink a little bit longer might be the trick now.
For sure, yeah. I've been counting down progressively, letting it get down, getting a bit of weeds, but that's what the fish are, so you got to go after them.
100%. There have been a lot of swallows swirling around in this bay here, just over the surface, like that one going through there. That indicates that there's a hatch going on. I'm not sure what's hatching. I haven't seen any of the actual insects yet. So, good chance I'd say that they might be tiny little midge or something like that. But it's also a sign that there's food in this bay. So I figure if there's birds there and they're swirling and taking insects that are hatching, there's a good chance that there might be trout in here searching for those aquatic insects as well. Now, if this place is open by the time the video goes live, I'm going to put some information down in the description down below about how you can get in touch and book to come and fish at Dixieland. It's a really fun fishery. It's not a pushover by any means. You've still got to catch the fish. They don't catch themselves. But the rewards are there to be had. You know that there's fish there to be caught, and some of them are really, really worth catching. All right, guys, well, that's it for today. We've had a fantastic day. Windy though it is and challenging though it is, we've caught some great fish. Get out there and enjoy some small still waters, and I really hope that this one is open for you guys to fish sometime soon. See you next time. Cheers.